Development matters, development matters. If for you, if for me, development matters, development matters. Gotta try to make a change.
Hello and welcome to Development Matters. On the program today,
granting non-Negro citizenship is a moral, legal, and economic imperative.
we debate the issue of who can be citizen of Liberia, given the provisions of Article 27B of our Constitution, which limits citizenship to only people of Negro descent.
The belief that granting non-Negro citizenship will develop Liberia is a lie told, a lie believed, and the rest is history.
Also on the program today,
congratulations to this. You've been appointed Director of Press and Publications.
profile Kenneth, founder of the longest running independent daily newspaper in Liberia, the Daily Observer. But we begin with our debate on Article 27B of the Liberian Constitution that limits citizenship to only people of Negro descent. Is it good for our country or should it be amended? To thrash out this issue, we have 6 young Liberians, all of whom are college students, and they will debate the motion granting non-Negroes citizenship, a moral, legal, and economic imperative. So let's now begin as we hear from Biola Nimne, who will present the opening argument for the affirmative side.
Ladies and gentlemen, before I go any further, I'd like to state Article 27B of the Liberian Constitution. We state, and I quote, "In order to foster, preserve, and maintain a positive Liberian culture, value, and character, persons who are Negroes or non-Negro or Negroes descent shall be qualified by birth or naturalization to be citizens of Liberia." The question here is it only Negroes can preserve and maintain the Liberian culture? I say a big no to that. Here are the reasons why we are supporting this proposition today. 1, it has a moral backing. 2, it's legal. And lastly, it will help boost our economy. Let's go firstly to the morality of this whole topic under discussion. First of all, we live in a world where we say racial discrimination is the problem, and we are promoting harmony. We founded Liberia based on the principle of freedom because we are against racism in the world. But this particular clause in our Constitution has defeated the foundation of Liberia in itself. It says that only people of black skin that have families who are blacks can be citizens of Liberia. That is very wrong. We as Liberians should promote harmony, we should promote racial equality, and we believe that if we amend this particular clause to incorporate both people of non-Negroes and Negroes descent, we can have a harmonious world and progress as Liberians. Secondly, to the legal aspect, Liberia is a signatory to a declaration on the elimination of all forms of racial discrimination under the United Nations Charter. We say we support the rule of law and we want our citizens to be law-abiding citizens. But us as Liberians, we don't even abide by the United Nations Charter on the abolishment of all forms of discrimination against people. We are supporting racism in itself, and that is very wrong. That is not legal. If we say we promote racial equality, if we say we promote the United Nations Charter, then we should erase and amend that particular clause in our Constitution. Lastly, to boost our economy. How many years have we existed as Liberians? 171 years. We have existed as Liberians, and say that, okay, so because this country was founded for black people, so only black people can be citizens. Where have that gotten us? We are the 4th poorest country in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, is it not clear that we cannot mention the economy of Liberia without mentioning Lebanese and Indians and Chinese? Is it not clear that we have been backwards since the foundation of our country? Our economy is not blooming. Why? Because we say we cannot allow those that are already in our economy to become part of us. To restate today's argument, I stated firstly, it is morally right for Liberians to allow non-Negro citizenship in Liberia. 2, it is legal because it is under the United Nations Charter that promotes racial equality. And lastly, those non-Negroes are already part of our economy, so incorporating them will be a boost for our economy. It will help to promote investment. It will help for people to build more in Liberia, and we can progress as Liberians. Thank you very much.
Now for the opening argument for the negative, we join John Sigbe.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we oppose the resolve on a discussion granting non-Negro citizenship is of a moral, legal, and economic imperative. Today, we want to firstly make people to understand why the crafter of our Constitution placed that clause in our Constitution. And to do that, we must put this debate in a historical context. For you to understand why we have such laws on our book, you must firstly understand why Liberia was founded. Liberia historically was founded to be a home for the Negroes race. It was founded to be a place where Negroes found refuge. Why? These people were marginalized and these people were even victims of slavery. That brings us to the point to say, has these reasons changed over the time? I submit no. Why? Today, in the world, Negroes still remain humiliated and marginalized at countries, European and American countries. The proliferations of right-wing populist leaders to step on the Negroes' race is a clear evidence that we as Liberians or Liberia should preserve and be faithful to the purpose of our foundation by remaining a home and refuge for the Negro race. In fact, Liberia is not the only country that practices such law. For example, Israel. Israel was founded to be a home for the Jewish people because of discrimination. Today, Article 1 of the Israeli Constitution on basic principles says Israel is a national state of the Jewish people. Therefore, citizenship in Israel is citizenship by descent and not by place of birth. Israel intends to preserve historical heritage as Liberia is also trying to preserve. Why don't you say we are racist? So, judging from this historical fact, we can know that the crafter of our Constitution were enough and informed to place this clause in our Constitution that was then written by a Harvard-trained professor of law, Professor John Simon Greenlee, who was not even a Negro. To our second point, Tim Side Proposition Affirmative told us that this is racist. Racism is not a theory. Racism connotes animosity, hatred, and bitterness. You cannot tell us that as Liberians we are racist when we afford non-Negroes the best of our country. So our third point in this debate, we want to prove to you. We as a country, we have lost economic power to the non-Negroes. Today, our economy is dominated by the Lebanese, the Chinese, and a lot of us as nationals who are not of Negro descent. We have one more power to preserve, that is political power. Granting non-Negro citizenship will definitely cause us to lose on political power. What becomes of a country where a man who is economically potent is allowed to compete with a Negro who cannot afford on a daily basis? You create an unbalanced playing field because they have the finances, they will manipulate a fragile democracy. To our next case, we want to urge our opposing team here today that the belief that granting non-Negro citizenship will develop Liberia is a lie told, a lie believed, and the rest is history. This sweet land of liberty was intended to be ours and will long be ours. I submit.
Now for rebuttals, and we join Nathan Wheely, who will rebut for the affirmative.
The team argued about Article 27B being maintained, and we are proposing an amendment. Now, the Article 27B states, and I quote, in order to preserve, foster, and maintain the positive Liberian culture, values, and character, only persons who are Negro or of Negro descent shall qualify by birth or by naturalization to be citizens of Liberia. By interpretation, people who have the white skin or who have no Negro descent history cannot foster, maintain, and forward our country's history or our country's growth. It would interest you to know that Liberia is a country that is filled with the culture of the Western world. We have a capital city called Monrovia, and yet you say people who are from that side, I mean the Western side, the Caucasians, cannot contribute or foster our growth. Why will you name your capital city Monrovia after the 5th president of America, James Monroe? That just tells you that it is not in totality true, but it is out of fear and timidity, and that is why it needs to be amended. It will also interest you to know that 10 of our presidents were born in America. One was born in Sierra Leone and another was born in the Caribbean. These are things pointing against this particular clause that these are, people who are Liberians or blacks are not the only people who can maintain or foster our Liberian culture. We have holidays like America, the Thanksgiving Day. I'm referencing these instances to tell you that the article itself needs to be questioned and scrutinized. And my analysis can clearly tell you that it is being evidently proven that Liberians have lived with people from the West and people from Asia, and these people are positively contributing to the progress of Liberia. Therefore, this particular clause should be amended. Honorable listening audience and viewers, we have some Caucasians being born in Liberia, speaking local dialects, culturally entrenched in the ways of life of the Liberian society, established business people like the Lebanese, the Malaysians, the Indians, and you can name the rest. It will only be economically advantageous if we grant them citizenship, especially when they control more than 95% of our economy. This will only tell you that when they are granted citizenship, they will have a resolve and free mind of more investment and more contribution to the Liberian society. Economically, what will happen to Liberia is that we will have established industries here that will not rely on manufacturing things outside, but rather we will have production at its peak right in Liberia. Legally, according to Senior Augustine, I like to quote him, he said, "And a just law is no law at all. If you have a clause, Article 27B, that is against an international protocol or an international instrument, which is the Declaration on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, Liberia is a signatory to this particular declaration according to my first speaker. It is only legally wise and legally prudent that we must adhere to this particular proclamation because we are people of rule of law." Honorable audience and viewers, our reasons today are very clear. They speak to your consciences, and we are speaking out of conviction because it is legally imperative, it is morally justifiable, and economically potent that we grant non-Negroes citizenship in Liberia. Thank you very much.
Now for rebuttal, for the negative, we join Ms. Sata Sharif.
Side affirmative is making or trying to make us to believe that granting non-Negro citizenship will solve all of Liberia's economic problems. The fact is, the economy of Liberia is currently being run by non-Negroes. What have they done all of these years that they have run the economy? Are they even investing in the economy that they run? It is an open secret that non-Negroes live the best of life in Liberia. What then do they want? Citizenship? No. That is the only right we have currently because our economy is not even being run by us. No one can say that Liberians are racist. We have a friendly economy. Our legal system has been built to discourage racism. Audience, our criteria for citizenship cannot be referred to as racist. It is misleading to say that Liberia is in violation of the Declaration of Human Rights. Liberia is under no legal obligation to amend its constitution. In fact, if we are to amend the constitution of Liberia, we will be betraying the struggle of preserving our historical heritage. Let's take a look at the visa policies for European countries and American countries as well. 9 out of 10 Liberians that apply for visa to go to European countries or American countries are denied. Why? 10 out of 10 Europeans or Americans that usually apply for visa to come to Liberia are granted. Audience, who then is more racist, us or them? We've allowed them to run our economy. We allowed them to live luxury of life in Liberia. And we open our doors. My recommendation to you, Team Affirmative, I'd like you to research more on the history of Liberia and why this state was funded. Because if you understand why Liberia was funded, you will join us in the struggle. Long live the struggle for a better Negro state. And thank you.
Now for closing arguments. And we join Eubank Wilsitu, who will close for the affirmative.
The clause, it says, in order to foster and maintain and preserve a positive Liberian culture. What is the culture are we talking about here, people? The culture that our parents refuse to teach us. The culture that because we are so ashamed of, some of us change our names from Cole to Catherine because we do not want that culture. And then we say we want to preserve that culture. It is not possible for us to do that. We cannot claim to be a peaceful people if we discriminate people based on their skin color. That is not right. We cannot repay evil with evil. This side wants you to believe that you do not have the capacity to compete with the white man. And that is wrong. We cannot suffer from an inferiority complex. We cannot feel inferior to the white man by saying if we allow them to become citizens in our country, it will threaten our existence. We are all smart people in this building, and we have sense enough to know that these people are not better off than us. These people will not threaten us if we make them citizens. And let us emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. Let us not grow up with the mind that these people will threaten our existence. With this, I submit. Thank you.
And now for closing for the negative, we join Moses Kenneth.
Martin Mays and I believe that giving people of non-Negro descent citizenship is not a means of gaining economic stability as shared by affirmative. Because people of non-Negro descent have dominated our economy for over 100 years. We've observed no improvement in our economy, amounting to our country being the fourth poorest country in the world. So, what justification do you have for that? It is not a means of gaining investment because those people have not been able to manufacture our resources here, but rather transport it or send it across the coast that it's been manufactured and then brought back to our country and it's been sold to us expensively being sold to us that we cannot afford. Therefore, giving people of non-Negro descent citizenship in Liberia is not or is of no vital importance. So in closing, my recommendation to my opponents here and the audience or viewers is that instead of fighting to give people of non-Negro descent citizenship, let us join us to talk to those people of non-Negro descent to help us develop Liberia, to help us invest in our economy. That the problems, the immigrant problems that they face today from the Negroes around the world, like America or Europe face from the Negroes, will be minimized or will be abolished. Thank you very much.
And that's our debate for today. Thanks to all of our excellent debaters. This is Development Matters. We'll be back in just a moment, and when we do come back, we profile Kenneth Best, the founder of the longest-running independent daily newspaper in Liberia.
For you and for me, development matters. Development matters. Gotta try to make a change. We need roads, food security. Liberia needs electricity.
Welcome back to Development Matters. And now for Profile, we present Kenneth Best.
And I ran that magazine until we graduated.
He is the founder of Liberia's longest-running independent daily newspaper, The Daily Observer. At 37, The Daily Observer is also the oldest of all newspapers currently on the market in Liberia. So, how did all of this get started? Well, he said, with a professor at Cottington University who thought he had some talent as a writer and tapped him to run the school's literary magazine when he was just a sophomore.
And she said to me, I want you to take over the Cottington Review. I said, Ms. Gay, that's a senior's job. Editor of the Cottington Review, that's a senior's job. She said, the senior has gone back to Tanzania. I know you can do it, and I'm here to guide you. I accepted the job, the challenge. And I ran that magazine until we graduated in December '63.
On that day, his graduation day, he made a bold move that would define his life and career as a journalist. He had seen the then president of Liberia, William B. S. Tupman, on campus to attend the graduation. So he said he heeded a voice that told him to take a copy of the Cottington Review he had edited to the president. And he did so. He went to the home of the president of the university, Christian Baker, where the president of Liberia was staying and was warmly ushered in by Mrs. Baker.
I got before him, I bowed, said, "Good afternoon, Mr. President." "Good afternoon, young man. You know my name." I said, "This is what we produce as students and faculty on campus. This is my last issue as editor. I came to present you 2 complimentary copies. You receive them, thank me, and offer me a seat across from him." He put one down. He took one up and leafed through it. At the end, he put it down. And then he said to me, "Now that you're finishing college, what do you want to do?" I had a big mouth. I told him, "I don't know what my country has to offer." He shot back at me. You can imagine the words he told me. "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." I said to him, "Yes, Mr. President, I agree with President Kennedy." Somebody boy said I was bad because I told him he was quoting somebody else. He was. A few moments, I got up, I bowed again, and I said, "Good afternoon, Mr. President. I have to go now and prepare for graduation." "Good afternoon, Mr. Best. You see my name in the book." I left.
4 months after his graduation, he got a call from the then Secretary of Information, E. Reginald Townsend, to come over to the ministry.
I got to Secretary Townsend, and then he said to me, "Well, Kenneth, the president must have been impressed with your magazine." And then he pulled out his story. Took out a green letter, talking about oil letter on green paper, and signed in green ink. He didn't ask me to try and find you a job. He directed me to employ you. Tells me, he says, the president means for you to work in this office. What do you say? And please tell the president I said, "Thanks very much. I accept the job."
He would impress his bosses, who sent him to Germany for training, and while there he got an important message from his boss at the Ministry of Information.
But while I was there, Mr. Townsend sent me a cable saying, "We've nominated you to go to Columbia University to study journalism." I filled all the papers and wrote my essay. He sent it. I was accepted. It's all the will of God. How do I get into Columbia?
He returned home after getting a master's in journalism, and after facing some difficulties getting his job back at the ministry, he got good news.
They sent for me. "Congratulations, Mr. Best. You've been appointed Director of Press and Publications."
Mr. Best would climb the ladder even more, eventually becoming an Assistant Minister of Information before joining the All-African Council of Churches in Nairobi as its Information Director. After several years in Nairobi, he finally set out to achieve a dream he had had for a long, long time, to open and run an independent daily newspaper in Liberia. And in 1981, he launched the paper, and right away ran into trouble with the military government of Samuel Doe.
We ran the paper. First year we were closed down twice. Second year will close down once.
He recalls his arrest the first time in June 1981 because his paper had carried letters from readers criticizing the military government of Mr. Doe.
Fired my car, so they turned around and followed me. From there, they whisked us straight to the stockade. It's our first time. First time we were closed. First time we went to jail. We were in jail for 10 days.
Following day, they published a paper with a headline that said they were unbroken.
With renewed zeal to serve the people, we are back.
They were back, but police would soon raid their offices and arrest them again just a few months later for publishing a letter critical of the late president of Guinea, Sekou Touré.
So strapping police, red cap, into the office. Get out! Get out! You tell my staff. We're closing this damn place down. And when I look outside, I was in my office. I look out the door. There was a man in plain clothes, CID, with a walkie-talkie in his hand. Mr. Best, you're wanted by the Minister of Justice. Second time I went to the...
There will be more arrests and more closures of his paper.
They closed us down one more time, 82. 83, we had a free ride. 84, January, they closed us down again.
This time, the closure was not for what they reported, but for what they did not report.
This lady president had come. We can't have told her before. See, everybody was going tomorrow. So the day he arrived, we didn't have anything. They say, disrespected the man, put so many people, close us down.
Then, with presidential elections scheduled for October 1985, they moved to close the Observer down again to get rid of a potential critic.
January, they closed us down.
Elections were held and the paper remained closed for almost 2 years. So they decided on their own to reopen their paper, and this time they paid a very heavy price.
That night, the attackers were fired. A taxi driver saw the building ablaze. Police were all around it. He ran to the fire service.
The last major problem they had with the government was in 1990 because they had the photo of an alleged murderer next to a story about Mr. Doe that also had his picture.
Somebody called me. You see what Kenneth Best has done to me again? What has he done? He got you on the front page with a murderer. That means you're a murderer too. Doe came downstairs, angry. They cut our lights, both at the office and at the press.
So in all, in under just 9 years, his papers was closed 5 times. He went to jail 3 times, and even his wife, May Jean, was jailed too.
And May Jean went once. She, my secretary, they was put in the sickest cell in town, CID cell in Mama Point.
And he and his wife, had a routine they followed whenever he was arrested and about to be taken to jail.
Never they came for me to take me to the mansion. Strapping police. I went across the hall where my wife's office was, called her into my office, we closed the door, and we decided to 20-minute sound. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Making me lie down in green pastures. And then she let me go. Every time it happened.
In 1990, with the advent of the Liberian Civil War, Mr. Best and his family moved to Gambia, where, against all odds, he established the paper there in 1991. Things went well until a coup in 1994 brought a military leader, Yahya Jammeh, to power in the Gambia.
Jammeh started behaving like a typical military man, mistreating people. Started picking up my boys, imprisoning them. Then one day they took me to the NSA. Interrogated me for 22 hours non-stop.
they finally deported him to Liberia in 1994.
Took me to the airport, put me in a cell there, and around 1:30, the immigration commissioner himself, he already had my passport. He took my passport off. He said, "Mr. Best, this is your passport." Put it back in his pocket. He said, "Today you be declared persona non grata."
He would then go to the United States with his family, but the dream of returning to Liberia to reopen his paper never died. And as soon as the Liberian Civil War ended and things returned to normal, he returned home in 2005 to reopen the Daily Observer. His lifelong partner in this endeavor, of course, has been his wife, Jean, and he remembers vividly how he met her.
I first met her in 1965.
He soon found they had a common interest that would last through the years.
I said, "What are you going to do after Covington?" Because she told me you were going to Covington. She said, "When I finish Covington, I will go to the States to study journalism." I said, "Oh, journalism?" I said, "You know who you're talking to, right?" She said, "No." I said, "You're talking to a journalist. I work at information." I never forgot that.
She would go on to graduate from Carleton University in 1968, land a job at Citibank in Monrovia, but eventually, after impressing interviewers at the Ministry of Information, she got a job there as a journalist working alongside him.
The woman graduated from Cotton in language and literature, so she knew the English. And so she got employed. And they assigned her to the press bureau, where I was director. The rest is history.
They would literally go on to make history together, founding and leading Liberia's oldest independent daily newspaper, the Daily Observer.
Development matters. Development matters.
Well, that's our program for today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on another edition of the program. So long, everybody.